Hello, welcome. Today I'm here in front of my wall of wigs. The wall's bigger than you can see, but it's nice to see a little bit. They all need a little bit of love and care right now. They're pretty messy. Like, if you check out this one, that one got a little well used last time I wore it, so it needs a little love. But anyways, I'm here, and I wanted to make a video today because I was feeling really angry this morning. I'm really into lots of like heady woo shit, like astrology, tarot. I do a ton of magic. I'm really into candle magic. I have an altar that I work with pretty much every single day. But specifically in the world of like astrology or human design, I don't know if anyone's familiar with human design, but it's something I've been learning about recently that is kind of like a mix between astrology, I Ching, chakra systems, but it's similar to astrology in that like you put your birth time in and you get a chart, and that chart is yours. And there's something that happens in both human design and astrology and a lot of other things where like you have your chart that I have been feeling really angry about, and really I haven't quite parsed all of the reasons I'm angry about it or like feel frustrated with it, but I wanted to kind of like unpack some of them. So when I like go and dig into my astrology chart and I'm reading online blogs or like listening to vlogs or podcasts or whatever, there's a tendency where the people that are like experts on these things like will assign like value, like a certain aspect is like really good or really bad or really like difficult or really like easy. And like, right, there are things that are like totally struggles in the world and there are things that aren't. But like, I get really, really angry when I'm like trying to read about an aspect of my chart and like the person that is talking about it is like, yeah, this is a really hard one. Like, sorry babes out there that have this, like you're gonna struggle with this. And when I listen to that, I'm always like, all right, cool. Actually, how about don't tell me what's going to be a struggle for me or not? Like, tell me how this is going to affect me, maybe? Like, be like, yeah, people with Scorpio moons, for example, that's my moon. Like, I had a reading with someone who was like, ooh, like, Scorpio moon, I feel for you. Like, that's so hard. That's so heavy. Like, that's a fight for life. And I was like, why don't you just tell me what you think is some of the aspects that come up with Scorpio moon, and I'll tell you whether I think they're difficult or not. Like, people, for example, with Scorpio moon, like what she was saying was like, I feel all the feelings, it's like really heavy, I have to sit in them, and that's extremely painful, and like, it's just hard, and it's just like a burden for your life. It's like essentially what this person was saying. But for me, I'm like, I actually experience my Scorpio moon as like a very strong part of my chart. And so like, yes, like feeling emotions super deeply can be really heavy. It can really be painful. But also like through what lens? Like I think emotions through the lens that I was raised, like I'm raised in New England in like a white kind of, middle class family. And I have Tourette's, just to let you know, so you're gonna see tics. But yeah, so like I was raised in a space where like emotions were really demonized. So when I hear someone say that about feeling my emotions really big, I'm just like, what lens are we looking through? Because like I actually experience feeling my emotions as massively helpful to me. The times when I'm most connected to my feelings, like even if they're hard, like I'm not as likely to betray myself by saying like yes or like saying things are okay when they're not, even though I still do that. I don't know, I'm more in tune with how other people are feeling. I'm like less, I don't know, it's just like feelings are very, very, very powerful and important. So like I don't like that. Whereas like if someone's to say to me like, Scorpio moons feel their feelings large in a huge way. So that means that like you're gonna have to take a lot of time to be sitting with and working and understanding your emotions. Okay, is that necessarily difficult? Like, I'm just gonna say, no, I'm uninterested in experiencing that as, like, inherently difficult. Because for me, when I hear something is, like, inherent, then, like, that's my like, cross to bear my whole life. And I'm like, actually, what if I just get really, really good emotional skills and like really take my emotions serious and make actual time in my life to sit with them and take them seriously, and I learn those skills. And now that's actually turned into like a really powerful thing in my life, right? Where like I have a lot of good relationships with my emotions and I learn a ton about them, and I can sit with other people's emotions really well now because I feel mine and I've had to sit with mine my whole life. And like I think that's like a pretty beautiful thing. Now, this has been coming up for me today because I've been learning about human design. I'm kind of digging in. And in human design, kind of like there are like chakra centers, and they're looking, when you like have your chart, when you like put your birth information in and like have a chart, you can see like your like chakra centers are either open, which means it's like a little, you're really taking in and feeling when in whatever little center it is. Each center kind of controls different like aspects of life or self-expression or whatever. And they're either undefined, so they're like open, so you're like a lot more likely to be picking up on other people's stuff in that category, or you're just like kind of, it's like harder to differentiate between what's happening in the outside world and happening in yourself. So for example, my like heart center in human design is like open, and like so is like my emotional center. And as I'm reading about it, like I'm just starting to see that same thing, people being like, oh yeah, like, you know, if you have your emotional center and it's open, like, you know, most of us have it and it's hard and we're just kind of feeling everyone's feelings and it's something you're going to be dealing with your whole life. And I'm like, already like, this lens is not my favorite lens. I'm like not subscribing to it. But then I start reading into something more specific about my chart, which is when you have center undefined, there are, like, if you look at the chart, there's all these little numbers around each center, and those themselves can be like activated or not activated. And if none of them are activated, you have like a completely open center. And so I noticed on my chart that I have a completely open center in like my emotional center. And so I started looking up and reading, and here we go. I see this shit again. I just can't fuck with it. So this person that I'm reading this blog, it's a blog I read to learn about human design a lot. I actually can't remember the name right now, but I'm kind of not going to say something nice about them, so I don't need to shout them out. Anyways, she was talking, the author was talking about how if you have an undefined emotional center, it's like having an open window. Like there's a screen, but a lot's coming in. But if you have none of those little numbers activated, if you're completely open, she was like, this is what she wrote. She was like, it's like having no screen. So not only can everything come in, but like a bird's flying in and you're like, and like bees are in and you don't know how you're going to get them out. And it's like living in complete chaos. This is what she writes. So I'm reading this and I'm like, she's just basically just being like, that's a struggle that people have. And so I started doing a little more research, and like always, yeah, you know, if you're completely open to the outside world within structures and social systems where emotions are demonized, where you're asked to take on everyone's shit all of the time, and you have a really hard time differentiating from other people's emotions, yeah, that's really hard in this context. But I think just like labeling it as something that's just like hard, like it's something you have, you can't change it, it's hard forever, and not like kind of pivoting back to the outside world and the larger structures that make anything that's inherent to me bad. Like I'm like, there's nothing that's in me that's inherently more difficult or more bad than anyone else. It's like a larger system that like fucks over certain people and fucks over people that are like essentially like have access to like power and wisdom through like, you know, like emotions or like other things. You know, and there's a reason why people that are very emotionally in tune get fucked over, because they're hella fucking powerful. And because, so like as I start reading more about these like completely open centers, like I learn that if you can like really slow down, really get in touch with yourself and start working on that differentiation and start working on that part where we just like shut down emotions and don't think they're important, there's like some really baller parts about having completely open emotional center, which is that like essentially is like if you can get really slow and low and in with yourself, like you have the power to like bring everything so deeply inside you that pretty quickly you can tell whether something's going to be a wise decision, whether someone is trustworthy, whether like an opportunity is going to be something that's going to build for you or not, or for other people. Like you get really, really up close and important information that like other people don't necessarily have access to. Like, is that a superpower? Yes. I'm getting like a little bit late. I wanted to make a shorter video than this, but I guess we're just going for this now because there was a link that I really wanted to make that has to do with ableism. Like, to me, when I'm hearing these things where people are like, okay, this is your chart, it's specific to you and you can't change it and it's part of your makeup and it's inherently wrong or bad. Like, to me, I really relate that to things that I hear. So like I have Tourette's. Okay. And if you know anything about Tourette's, when you start talking about it straight on, like your tricks get way worse. Shout out to anyone with Tourette's who has this experience. That's why it makes it very hard to talk about. Like for me, I'm like, Tourette's is something I have. It's inherent to me. I can't change it. And people talk about it like they talk about so many disabilities as if it's something that's ruining my life, as if it's something that's like my cross to bear and it's like a hard thing and I have to unpack, you know? And yeah, it is. It's my responsibility. But why is it hard, right? I'm someone that like tics a lot. I yell a lot. I say inappropriate things right sometimes. That's hard because other people in scenarios are ableist and act fucked up towards me. And then I have shame and embarrassment around it. That's not anything inherent to being someone that tics or screams sometimes. Like, actually, my experience with tics is that, like, once I started ticking freely, I had this little, like, pressure valve that helps me get rid of anxiety. And my tics have helped my anxiety levels, which were, like, violently bad when I was trying to repress my tics, of course. But, like, so many people experience really intense anxiety, and my Tourette's actually helped me work with that. It's like a little, I had an acupuncturist was like, this isn't a bad thing for you. It's actually like really good for your nervous system. Boom and boom. And so like, I don't know, like I just kind of like feel like they're in this like similar realm when someone's like, yeah, something's inherently bad or hard, or you're going to have a burden because something's like part of you. And like, I just think like saying that, like it's very important to acknowledge difficulty and hardship and pain if someone is experiencing it, but saying that because something is inherently part of them is gonna cause pain, like that's like a death sentence. That's like forever, I guess I'm gonna struggle with Tourette's and be in pain by it. No, I'm not, actually. I'm gonna do my work to actually raise myself up and to instead of have to like, the burden of having to tell someone all the time. It is a burden to have to explain Tourette's to people. But like really at this point, now that I'm like doing the work to rise myself up, no, I can correct someone else and I feel powerful. I can like sit in a room and tic and like, yeah, sometimes I have to nurse myself through embarrassment. But the more as I nurse myself through embarrassment, the more I sit in it and I see other people's weird writhing embarrassment. I'm like, you're uncomfortable with this? Why are you uncomfortable with this? Oh, because you're ableist and that's your shit to work through. I'm chilling with less anxiety than I ever had, so. I don't know. This is maybe convoluted. I don't even know if it's going to resonate with people, but that's all I have to say. You know, like I am uninterested in experiencing anything that's inherently mine as inherently painful, hard, or damaging. Like, I'm just, like, not gonna do that. And I also, like, you know, like, if you want to do that, sometimes people need to, right? Sometimes people's pain has been so unvalidated that, like, you need to sit in that as something that's inherently painful for a while. That headspace is maybe helpful to you. So you should go for it. And there's been lots of times where that's been the case for me. But in reality, I'm just uninterested in accepting that. Like, I'm just done. I don't think it helps me grow. I don't think it helps me gain skill sets. Like, the reason why I look into human design and the reason why I look into astrology is so that I can get insight into, like, how to live my most, like, fun and effective life. You know? How to get through situations that seem hard and, like, what energy to look to. What deities to look to, what type of friends do I need in this moment to help support me in this moment of hardship. Like, I look to astrology and to other like woo things as to gain insight into growth that makes my time easier. So like when I look into those and I like talk to an expert who says shit to me that explains to me that there's something that's in me that's going to be hard forever, like those experts have a shit ton of power, and they're looking into something that's about you that you don't know as much about, more than likely. And I just find that shit inappropriate. I'm like, get a hold of your lens. Psychics do this shit all the time too. I've gone to get psychic readings where they're like telling me that my organizing, my political organizing, is like distracting me and I should like stop doing it. And I'm like, cool, all right, I've learned that like that's just not helpful. Like, why don't you say like, yeah, the way you're engaging with your political work right now is like bringing you a lot of chaotic energy, and like, you know, there's a way that you can like plug in that, I don't know, you know, there's a million different things that you can say into response, but just like telling someone that something's just that doesn't work for you, that's not information. I just think that shit's fucked up. Like, if you're a psychic, if you're reading charts, if you're telling people information about themselves, like, check your lens. Like, check your lens. Check your lens. You have a huge amount of power, and like, you have the power to devastate people and make them feel disempowered forever. Like, that's what happens. I hear people say it all the time. Oh, I have this aspect in my chart, like, I'm gonna have this painful thing, and that's just my cross to bear. Who told you that? And also, if you want to think about it like that, please do, baby. Like, please do. But still, like, who told you that? And like, who's that actually benefiting? I don't know. I just feel like I like see it. I feel like there's like just like very strong lens of imperialism and like colonialism in that like language of in that like hierarchy, better than, other than. I don't know. Anyways, I just spoke really fast, and I hope that it's maybe something interesting to folks or whatever. Either way, it felt really good for me to record that. I was on a little rant. Pussy Vision peacing out now. Bye.